The smoke has risen from Willie B, and we now know who is running the show in Columbia for 2026 offensively. Is this the hire that Gamecocks fans wanted? Will this save Shane Beamer's job past 2026? Well, you kind of got to hope to, because if not, change will be coming to Columbia in 2027. Kendal Briles leaving Fort Worth, TCU, to head on up to Columbia, and he will now be taking over as the Gamecocks play caller. What do we make of the move? What does this mean for LaNorris Sellers, and how will this change for the long haul? Let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. War Chicken Nation, like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football daily. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly fueled by our friends at FANDUEL. Go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started today with $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. The app is free, simple, easy to use. Maybe you want to go ahead and take a way too early odds at South Carolina's win total in 2026 by going to FANDUEL.com/SECU. This is a very interesting hire. I will not call it a home run hire. I will not say that Shane Beamer struck out. I won't go in either direction, but it felt clear for the last week that Kendal Briles was going to be the target, and he has got to be successful, because let's just call a spade a spade. There is no seat hotter in 2026 for an SEC coach than Shane Beamer after the regression that we saw in 2025. Now, let's just break down some things that we really like about the move. Number one, night and day difference than Mike Shula. So automatically, massive win. Shula comes from a very pro-style offense that probably was not going to translate enough to the college level, especially with the talent like LaNorris Sellers, even though I thought that there were similar traits to Cam Newton to where it could work. But now you're bringing in a Kendal Briles version of this offense. This is college-based from the get-go. And a lot of the high-tempo scoring units that we see currently in college football have been derived from the mastermind of Art Briles, Kendal's father. You look at Lane Kiffin's offense. You look at Josh Heupel's offense. You look at Eric Morris's offense that was #1 in scoring this year. You're going to get similar traits to that with explosive plays downfield, a lot of trust in the run game, and the ability to go build a consistency when it comes to the overall offensive line. So good things there. Number two, this is an experienced play caller. Kendal Briles has been running offenses at multiple locations for over a decade, including stops at Houston, Florida State, Baylor, FAU, and he's been with TCU since 2023. Not to mention, he also has experience coaching in the SEC during his tenure when he was at Arkansas, working with guys like KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. So automatically, this is somebody who has understood what works for an offense and what doesn't work for an offense. And he utilizes that to be able to learn from his mistakes. When looking at his numbers over the last decade as an offensive coordinator, according to our friend Chris Marler, 36 totally in offense, averaging 34.5 points per game, 24th in total yards at 471, 29th in yards per play at 6.3, 37th at 268 passing yards per game, 23rd in plays of 10 yards or more downfield with 210, 30th in first downs, 24th in third down conversion. And I will also throw in TCU the last 3 years had ranked inside the top 40 in sacks allowed. South Carolina's offensive line was basically a turnstile. Outside of maybe Josiah Thompson, you could have had 4 traffic cones and they would have done the exact same job. So automatically, you feel like that's going to be a major transition, especially when you look at Shane Beamer's offense, who over the last 5 years, the offense is not ranked higher in any category than 61st, which is passing yards per game. So automatically, you feel like that's going to be a massive win in the standpoint. Now, guarding the offense, it's going to be a lot of explosive plays. This is where you need to be able to have that speed, and you need to be able to win with finesse downfield. But this is not a team that's only going to rely heavily on just the passing attack. So if somehow Nick Harbor does decide to come back, or you go out and you bring in a couple of young receivers that could be big-time names, or you just see the growth of guys like Donovan Murph and Jaden Sellers and Brian Rowe, then ultimately what you are going to see is this offense looking for those deep shots, those 18-yard plays downfield, the 15-yard comebacks. And TCU fans are losing their minds and saying, thank God we no longer have Kendal Briles running the show. You also got to realize that a stale offense that was not working in Fort Worth might be exactly what is necessary out in a place like Columbia, especially at a program like Willie B that is a hostile environment that thrives on being able to win across the intermediate part of the field. TCU fans are making fun of slants. South Carolina fans are praising the fact that there are slants coming to this offense who wasn't able to do anything over the last few years when it comes to the intermediate part of the field. So automatically, you feel like that's going to be explosive. The other thing is there will be an emphasis on trusting the run. Remember Rocket Sanders when he came in 2024? The backbone of the rushing attack, a big reason why LaNorris Sellers could easily go ahead and manipulate offensive lines and have an X factor when it came to not having to play hero ball like he did this past season. Well, the last time that we saw Rocket Sanders being able to blast off in Fayetteville was when Kendal Briles was the offensive coordinator in the year that they went 9-4. So again, this is a guy who is going to put a lot of emphasis on trusting the rushing attack. I texted a buddy of mine that works in scouting, and he told me that this is an offense that will sell an identity toward kids who are entering the transfer portal. And that's a big deal because right now, South Carolina is going to have to rely, I think, heavily on bringing in immediate plug-and-play starters at certain positions like running back, maybe wide receiver 1, definitely wide receiver 2, and I would even go as far as to say tight end plus the offensive line with transfer portal players. And now with Kendal Briles being a guy that has already shown you there's not only a proven track record, but also there's a consistent identity in his offense. People can start to sell the idea of what is going to work, what you can expect out in Willie B this upcoming fall, which again, massive win in favor of Shane Beamer to be able to feel like that you're going to see growth. Now, a couple of the cons, this offense was a little bit stale at times at TCU. The question is how much of that was on the likes of Kendal Briles or how much of that was on the likes of Sonny Dykes. Remember, Sonny Dykes touched down in Fort Worth and immediately started to win with Max Duggan, immediately started to see consistency with the passing attack and Quentin Johnston, and they went to the national championship. His offensive coordinator also left to go to the state of South Carolina, where he has failed to meet expectations in the upstate with Clemson, Garrett Riley. So is this a thing that you wonder about when it comes to, was the play calling based off of Briles? Was Sonny Dykes kind of having a little bit too much of a say? Things that could be very negative. And the other thing, naturally, is just the fact this is a guy that is a big risk because if he constantly is on the move. You maybe want to go with a coordinator that had a little bit more up-tempo. Maybe you want to go with the guy that you could trust the rushing attack. Maybe somebody with an emphasis on offensive line play. All things I think were very detrimental and things that could have been a story plot for helping South Carolina be able to build a bit of a more rapport for a crucial year. Now, when it comes to LaNorris Sellers, that's what the big storyline here is. I do not think for 1 second he is going into the NFL draft. He's not ready. He's not mentally prepared. And I think also there will be teams that will say, you're a second round pick. You can make just as much money for 1 year to stick with a program. The question turns to, is this a program that he wants to stick around with? Will 16 be under center come week 1 when South Carolina begins a pivotal year? That may be up for debate. But what I will say is there are some things to really like about this system if you are LaNorris Sellers and want to come on back. Number one, KJ Jefferson thrived, throwing the football downfield with the vertical passing attack and also trusting his legs in the open field. And that was what worked in 2024 with Dowell Logans at the very end of the year, that 6-game stretch where it felt like he was the number 1 quarterback in the SEC. So I think that if you're able to go ahead and convince him, the things that you were doing really well in 2024, that's going to be the standard in my offense. Dude, we're going to go out and we're going to bring in wide receivers. We're going to go out and we're going to add in 2 or 3 talented running backs. Oh, and we're making some really good hires at other positions. I don't know what's going to be the status with Sean Elliott on the offensive line, but Stan Drayton, who has been known for developing running backs, including names like Jarius Norwood, Carlos Hyde, Brian Westbrook, Ezekiel Elliott, and Bijan Robinson, he is expected to be the running backs coach, and his relationship with Briles probably allows him to go target some names in the portal that could become home run hits by the time that we get to October. So a lot of things are going, I think, in the right direction for a program like South Carolina to sell to Sellers if he wants to be the guy. Hey, we're going to be completely different than what we were last season. On the flip side, and probably more important, let's say he does enter the transfer portal. I think this offense is really going to be beneficial for Aaron Nolan. A lot of things that you like about Aaron Nolan with arm strength, with accuracy, things that stood on out when he was coming through the high school ranks and committing to Ohio State. That is kind of what fits, I think, a little bit more for the brand of what you want with Kendal Briles. Not saying that KJ Jefferson or LaNorris Sellers couldn't have success, but there's a reason why I think that the mobility of the quarterback was always a secondary thought and the vertical passing downfield was number 1. So either way, I think that South Carolina could be really well situated with a quarterback. And let's just call a spade a spade. If they want to go out into the transfer portal, if Josh Hoover were to make a move, he understands the offense. He put up over 3,900 passing yards this past year. A lot to like about him as a potential option. Bottom line is when you look at this hire from top to bottom, there's things that you can nitpick at. But the first thing that I'm looking for is being able to go target names in the portal and put ourselves in a better position to where we know this team is going to be able to be more balanced, more cohesive, and not just rely on the explosive plays. This will be a completely different unit, which means that there will be some names that currently are on South Carolina's roster that probably won't like to enter the transfer portal. But at the end of the day, this is a veteran, experienced coach who understands offensive concepts, and I think will get the best version out of a lot of names that may or may not be coming on back. If you're able to keep Nick Harbor, you're able to keep LaNorris Sellers, and you're able to target some premier names in the portal, South Carolina should be at least competing for a 9-win season. And a 9-win season very well could be enough to at least guarantee you a top 15 finish in the college football playoff rankings. And if you pull off an upset or two, maybe you're in the college football playoff altogether. I don't think this is a bad hire. I think it is a smart hire for a guy who needs to be able to win now. Kendal Briles will turn the offense around in a lot of different ways. But you got to get better on the offensive line. You got to make sure that the quarterback is on the same page, and you got to attack the transfer portal at wide receiver, tight end, and even a little bit of running back. Before we get out of here, let me tell you about my friends over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU. Sign up today, get $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel is the #1 app for the NBA, college basketball, and of course, future college football bets. FanDuel.com/SECU. Until next time, War Chicken family, I'm Cole Thompson. Kendal Briles is headed to the Big Spur. What a moment. This could actually end up being one of the best hires of the offseason. Or it could crash and burn. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.